Hello teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade. Thank you for watching this video and thank you for being a part of the clinical experience for IUS teacher candidates. This video will go through and explain and show and illustrate the assessment tool that we will be asking you to use at the conclusion of the 15 hours of the IUS candidate, 15 hours minimum working in your room. I'm David Sullivan Losi, and at IU, I am the coordinator of F200, the coordinator of clinical experience. So it's good to be with you today. IU Southeast is accredited by the Council for Accreditation of Educator Preparation, or CAPE, and we want to keep that accreditation because that's why we can help students gain teaching licenses. And so CAPE is requiring even more levels of clinical experience from each of the students in schools of education across the country. They have also changed the vocabulary and the job titles that have been used in the past, and this is to match other professions, and it's the closest match to the medical profession. They use the terms clinicals and clinical experience and clinical supervisor. So this slide that you see now is the new past vocabulary on the left and the new vocabulary on the right. So the students that are with you in F200 are completing a clinical experience, and you are the P12 clinical educator. The P12 clinical educator, it's to elevate the importance of your role in this process of training teachers. The IUS student is called the candidate or the clinical experience candidate. I am the academic clinical educator, and it's the academic clinical educator and the P12 clinical educator, you, who work together to make this successful. And when we get to student teaching, it's no longer called student teaching, it's called clinical practice. So we do need your help. IU Southeast needs your help in preparing the P12, need the help of the P12 clinical educator, which is you, to help us meet our CAPE accreditation, because CAPE requires that we have a close, mutually beneficial partnership between the university and local K-12 schools and K-12 teachers. CAPE also requires the experience and the skills of the P12 clinical educator as a critical component of high-quality teacher education. The performance assessment that the P12 clinical educator completes for that IUS clinical experience candidate is given strong consideration in any clinical decisions and decisions about proceeding forward into the School of Education. So what you have to tell us about the clinical educator, about the clinical student who worked in your room is very important. We have a tool that we believe will be helpful, and it's based upon InTask and CAPE standards. This clinical experience tool, we have done away with paper. We won't be mailing you anything or sending papers out with the clinical student to your room. It's an online tool, can be easily completed on a computer or a tablet and perhaps even a phone. So the assessment tool covers these areas: InTask standards, and that's the Interstate Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium. And they have 10 standards, and we're going to ask you to comment on some of those standards, assess the student in some of those InTask standards. And also the IUS School of Education dispositions, the character traits, how the student behaves, what kind of character they have, are they responsible, are they punctual, are they committed to all students learning. And then of course, we want a minimum of 15 hours of our student being in your room, assisting you and assisting your students. And then finally, the fourth thing, we want to ask you, probably for the first time we've ever asked, in an assessment tool, and that is, was the candidate valuable to you as the teacher, the P12 clinical educator? Did the student help you? And secondly, did the student, our student, the candidate, help the P12 students, the students in your room? It needs to be mutually beneficial. And by getting your feedback, we can work to make that more beneficial than perhaps it is now, because we want it to be mutually beneficial. So assessing the online assessment, getting to the online assessment, you received an email from me, and in the email it has the link. You simply click that link and it will take you directly to the assessments. I want to show you now what that assessment will look like, because I've done screenshots or screen grabs of the actual online survey so that you'll be able to see what you're going to be asked. So let's take a look. So here's what it'll open to when you click the link, and it's just terms that we've mentioned and asking you to complete this assessment tool for the clinical student. And it also, near the bottom, the very last line says there's space for comments, and those are pivotal at points in the assessment survey, and we value your opinion. So most of it will be click to choose, and the option to put in some comments, and those are optional. Anything you'd like to share will be valuable to us. Then the second screen, as you go down the screen, you're going to see that we consistently use the same terms throughout the assessment so that you don't have to memorize one set or look at one set. The lowest level is unacceptable. The candidate lacks consistent skills. We hope no one receives that, but that's a possibility. Acceptable, the teacher candidate demonstrates limited skills. We honestly believe that's where most of our candidates are going to be scored, because they're just beginning in F200. So we hope that they're acceptable and have some limited skills. Some may get into the proficient area where they're demonstrating consistent skills and competency, and of even a beginning teacher. So a few will be there. Maybe one or two, maybe no one. Advanced, those are the candidates, the teacher candidates who have knowledge, demonstrate knowledge, and have skills that indicate they will be an exemplary teacher and could do so very quickly. So those levels are there for you to choose, and we also have a level N for no opportunity to observe. Sometimes you just can't assess that because it didn't see it in your room. So feel free to use no opportunity to observe when you need to, but then we have unacceptable, acceptable, proficient, and advanced. So, all right, the first question, we're going to ask the last name of the student that was with you and the first name of the student that's with you. That helps us get this into the database so that we can use your assessment data to help us improve the clinical experience. And the third item is for you to type in your name. First and last name, Sam Smith is fine. You're going to pick IU as clinical educator, which is in your email. It's either this semester me, Sullivan Losi, Hollenbeck, or Zolman. So there's three of us that you can pick from that window, easy to click. And then the name of your school, where the student did the work, where our student, the clinical candidate, did the work. And next is grade level. And if you had 2 or 3 grade levels that our student worked with, just pick one of those, kind of give us an indication of where the student was. And then finally the role, and it's either that you pick either P12 clinical educator or academic clinical educator, because Dr. Hollenbeck, Dr. Zolman, and myself are going to complete this exact assessment tool for the candidate. So just on that bottom one, role, click P12 clinical educator. That's you. So again, I mentioned that throughout the assessment tool, we're going to use a consistent key. So it's easier to remember those categories, and you can always look back. We have them periodically through the assessment. CAPE requires that we get a click from you here on the top one that says you have read the descriptions and you're ready to go. So if you could do that. And then we're going to get to the INTAS standards. I'm not going to read those for you, but on the email, I have an attachment of the INTAS standards printed out for you in case you want to have that while you're doing this. But the first one is learning differences. INTAS standards, again, not all of the INTAS standards, but some of them, the ones we think most likely could occur in the clinical experience. And if you could rank all those, and if it's not observed, just mark it that way. Then there's a space for comments if you choose to. That's optional, but your comments are so very valuable to us. And then we move from INTAS standards to the IUS School of Education dispositions. The first one, candidate respects the legal and ethical norms and values of education. Did they act like a beginning teacher or a teacher candidate? And you can go through these. The last one is candidates committed to all students learning. And I have those as an attachment for you that you can print out while you're completing the assessment tool if you'd like. And then again, a text box, and above that, a question for you: did they do a minimum of 15 hours of clinical experience in your classroom? If you're doing this a little early before the end of the semester, maybe they don't have that done, but if you can see that they're going to, if you've had that commitment, go ahead and mark that. And you can put a comment in the box there. And then here's that mutual benefit that I was talking about. We're going to ask you to rank how valuable the candidate was for you, how valuable the candidate was for your students, and then add any comments that you'd like to there. That would be a help to us in our program, and a help to the beginning, the future teacher. And then we want to get into those responsibility kind of items. You're going to see some questions here about punctuality, attendance, reliability, and professional promise. So if you can mark those, give us an indication of your assessment of the student in those important areas of responsibility, I appreciate it. And then at the top, this is a very important one. Do you recommend the clinical candidate be admitted to the teacher education program? Because F200 is a probationary class for all students who want to be in the School of Education. And if they get a recommendation from the P12 clinical educators and from their academic clinical educator, then they can get full admittance to the teacher education program in the School of Education. So the top question, do you recommend that? You can recommend it fully. You can recommend with concerns. You can not recommend. The next two, if you recommended with reservations, if you put a little context there in the text box, that would be helpful. You can skip it if you marked proceed fully, recommend fully. And then the next box is if you said no, they should not be admitted to the School of Education, if you put some information there. And again, if you picked proceed fully or continue with reservations, then you can skip that no box. So just the top one, if it's continue fully, some comments if it's continue with reservation, and some comments if it's not to continue in the School of Education. And finally, the last box, which is a possibility for comments to help us, anything you'd like to put there. And again, it's optional. You don't have to type anything, but whatever you type will be valuable to us. And then finally, the survey is going to close off with thanking you. And just to help us out for next semester, we're asking, are you willing to do this again? Will you be a P12 clinical educator for students at IU Southeast who are working in clinical education? 3 choices there: that you are willing to work, you're not willing to work, or you're not sure yet. So optional, but if you could check one of those, it'll help us find quality P12 clinical educators to help our students. And these questions are for the professors, so you don't have to do any of those. It tells you can skip those and go right down to the submit button. So those questions are clearly marked for the IUS academic educator. And then after you've put in where you say, yes, I'm willing to do this again, or no, I'm not, or I need some more time to think about it, just move down the screen to the submit button, click that, and you are finished. And this all goes into our computer and it gets generated, and we have data, and all of our accreditation agencies, just like for you, it's the Department of Education in Indiana or Kentucky. Here it's a CAPE for us. So thank you very much for your help in preparing high quality new teachers at Indiana University Southeast School of Education. Again, I'm Dr. David Sullivan Losey. I'm coordinator for F200 and coordinator for clinical experience. If you have any questions in the email, I have my email addresses. I have my cell phone, which you're welcome to call or text. I'll come and see you in person if need be, or we can talk on the phone. If everything's going well, great. But we do appreciate your help. Thank you very much, and goodbye.